half-inch round over 2 3/4-inch ply, Grudgette. That's what it looks like when it starts. 2x4 inch shape. It's cut down, rounded, and mitered. That's where magic sets tap.
We're back here with Jimmy Cobb, painter extraordinaire here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Hello. Jimmy, your first question is, when did you make your first canvas?
First canvas. I don't really remember making my first canvas directly. I remember I would usually buy canvases from Goodwill and paint over them. And then eventually I would buy kind of different frames or things from thrift stores that I could stretch, I guess. The idea of, I said I guess a lot in the last video, so I gotta quit saying that.
No, you're fine.
Basically, I learned to stretch canvases at school, at my ed, the right way. And once you learn the right way of doing something, you learn all the wrong or other or better ways to do it. And I think exploring that spectrum was part of something that made a lot of the paintings new and interesting. I've stretched over wood frames, metal frames, painted over old thrifted frames. Ultimately, I just got an eye for the quality of what material you're painting on, whether that's building up a good surface. So I would buy like thrifted paintings and unstretch them, just totally like cut them out and get new canvas on them. And then I realized the wood wasn't that good and I could make it better. And eventually it got to the point where there was enough expression happening in the stretcher bar that I thought it was a little bit of a shame to not be related to the piece more. And that kind of wraps into the story about flipping the frame, flipping the stretcher bars, you know, getting a different perspective and giving them some time to shine, because it is really expressive in a way. It rhymes with, you know, the rectangle, the traditional trope of painting in 2D on the wall, brings it a step closer. And long story short, I learned to stretch at school, and that's also where I learned to break all the rules of traditional stretching.
Dude, that would be really sick, though. A big number. I think you should do it. Big? Like one giant one, yeah.
I think that's kind of the basis of art, is you learn something the right way so that you can learn it the wrong way and use it to your advantage.
Perfect. Now, so you learned pretty much at Maya to do it the right way. Was there anyone in particular that like taught you or helped guide you, or were you watching YouTube or
a little bit of everything. There was a class, a painting class that, you know, it was, here is plywood, here is gluing plywood, here is cutting plywood, here is putting it together. And we learned in that class to make a, you know, traditional rectangular stretcher bar with plywood. And then we learned to make a panel, you know, with the brown MDF board, all that stuff. And then I kind of got inspired by looking at other structures that other artists built and seeing how they went about stretcher bars, getting involved with some sculptors who bled into painting, like Elizabeth Murray, Ron Gorchov. There's a big experimental canvas movement in the 70s where people were breaking the rectangle deliberately and still calling it painting. And I drew a lot of inspiration from that. I think Gorchov's shapes were awesome. He's famous for like the saddle or the Pringle shape. And Elizabeth Murray really went crazy with her constructions. And they're really cool to see in person because they're really huge. But I learned from just trial and error. I think I have made a lot of different types of structures that hold painting that hold canvas for painting. And through all that trial and error, I've taught myself a lot of the ways, what I like, what I don't like, and again, how to use it to your advantage to tell a better story with the painting.
Now, obviously, like, this size does not happen every piece. Like, we recognize this is a rather large size.
When making stretcher bars, you're going to go through about 1 entire gallon of Type Pond. Yeah. Doesn't taste like it. With the crossbars, you're going to go in a gridded pattern. Going to leave about a square foot on each edge, which makes for this larger, similar 4x5 ratio centerpiece. This is going to divide the composition pretty nicely, I think. But we're going to find out.
Do this. The main problem is these have
Intersect. I think I might just go over.
Let's see.
I'm kind of digging this guy.
Are those both like the prototypes or the idea, the concept?
Yeah, both different studies with different colors. So I think that's the bar structure. It's kind of this way right now. But I guess this doesn't matter until we paint it. But that's definitely what I want out of the bar forms. Because I'm out of nails. Like a dumbass. We had to use joinery. The old time tried true. After the connecting wood. Oh, can't hear a word of that.
Just kidding. I'm not going to use joiner. I'm going to use 4 single nails. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 12 nails.
Upgrade. Plus some 2.5s, in case you need a little bit more. Let's get this one.
It's me.
4th wall break.
J2, who is this guy? Who is this guy we're seeing right now? Oh my god. Lens episode coming soon.
Watching that Basquiat documentary, Julian Schnabel's, I think his 1996 movie with Basquiat, about Basquiat, and the scale of his paintings allowed him to move around them differently. And I think there's a couple different angles, I should say. The Basquiat movie was great. It inspired me to make sure I go a little bit bigger because I have a bigger space available. And that's the problem with, not the problem, but the confining dynamic for most artists to work small is that they have a small space. And to work small in a big space seems kind of wasteful. So I don't see any reason to keep making the work as small as it is. It's harder to store when it's big. It's harder to move. It's more expensive. Ultimately, there is a lot of different reasons to stay small, stay controlled, but there's just as many to go big. I think speaking for painting and for sculpture, when something gets bigger to this size, it gets more accessible.
No, you want to be in the video? Let's go!
Yeah, that makes that brown,
Yeah, and partially, some of this will get sanded off, so it'll actually be a little lighter than this.
What was thinking?
Yeah, it's solvent based, so it's evaporating very fast.
And the amount of detail and spots that you can dig into, it does take more time. But, you know, back to the brush philosophy, you have bigger brushes, smaller brushes, and ways to get, I mean, with a larger painting, you can get more detail and you can get better feeling when things are life size. You know, when you're constrained to something super small, it ends up being super small. It feels super small. You have to use small brushes and small strokes, and a lot of times that loses the dynamic act of painting and confines it. So to work bigger is freeing. I think the murals sometimes stem inspiration in that direction. I mean, painting with a 9-inch roller is a great feeling. I would recommend any kind of scale differentiation to any artist that's kind of struggling to shake it up. Get a drop cloth, put it on a wall, paint something huge, and then paint something really small, and see the difference of how you treat those different sizes. So yeah, I'm wanting to work bigger lately. I think that's a goal of mine for this year, this upcoming year, is to make work that stands out, you know, solve the problems of storage, solve the problems of price and material and all that later, and just make work the size that it should be for what you want to say. And again, it's like flipping the bars. Why would you choose to do something that's kind of against the norm? Or why would you choose to do something that's at first more work, but to tell a better story, but to show something in a better light? And ultimately you're kind of doing a service to the idea, the painting, the piece, when you give it that extra time, when you give it that extra size, and you can actually really become more of a part of it.